Holy bejibbers. It's a dev stream. Haven't had one of these in a while. Today's task is the most important. Stare at code and think real hard. What could be more important than that? Is that it? Why was that even there? Is that my only diff here? Yeah, okay. See what I did there, but I don't really care. Okay, I was actually gonna get into RTEnnui land. Can I, with relative expedience, set up a second, maybe just like a loopback server to test some echoey stuff? How would I do that? Do I have the necessary stuff set up? Real time on... That is actually what it stands for, Lucy in chat. So, WebRTC is the system that RTEnnui aims to replace. And to rhyme with RTC, it's RTEnnui. So it does just mean real-time ennui. I mean, shouldn't we all wish to experience ennui in real time? The alternative is to experience it in not real time. I think, actually, if I just run this, assuming I even can. Why did I link the Firefox profile to dev null here? I don't even know why I would do that. I'm just logged into a random other machine I have available. And I apparently decided it would be a great idea to link it to dev null to link Firefox's directory to dev null. Really genuinely don't know why I did that. That can't possibly be right. Wow. Okay. Now let's see. Let's just see. Let's see several things. Okay, step one. I can't even copy this out of this virtual environment. Real failure mode here. Exactly, Lucy in chat. It's so difficult to experience ennui in real time. It always feels like it comes on one slowly. Yes, I know that there's currently nothing on the screen. That is quite intentional. I guess it was probably that, Lucy. I don't freaking know. I shall make no attempt at actually understanding my own actions. Oh, it probably was that because this is a fairly sort of storage-restricted system, and at one point I probably, thought I was never going to use it for web, so let's just make sure I don't accidentally use it for web. Okay, let's see if this works at all. Testing. Audio encoding. Oh, whoop, oh. Test, up. Sure doesn't seem very happy. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what aspect of this is not working. Oh, there we go. Oh dear. There's the big thing about that system not working, is that it's very slow. Unfortunately, I'm going to need a chunkier machine, I think, to actually, even just for echo, run on WeCaster. Apologies if people are saying things that I can't hear. Oh, this is very odd, actually. Oh, I know exactly what's happening. Hello, Dan. Just make a temp directory for doing that more usably, says Lucia. Linking a profile directory to dev null is just such a me thing to do. I always, my home directory always has .wine linked to dev null just to make sure I don't use a single global wine directory. It's just like something I do. Let me, just for the sake of it, let me show this. So, echo is supposed to be echoing me, but because the system I'm cancellation is off. I assumed it was going to be echo cancellation. Let me disable all features and rejoin. What's weird, I was expecting it to be a more spectacular failure than it is, but actually the audio is receiving on the echo end just fine, so I'm really confused by why it's not echoing, because that doesn't actually have anything to do with me. That's just pulse audio. My audio cut out there, says Dan. Did it? Yeah, this is very strange. Well, even if the echoing isn't working, it would be more compelling for y'all with the echo, but I can see what I need to see, because all I need to see is when the audio is received, so... Maybe I should install Chrome on that system, but anyway. Wow, that almost worked for a second there. It's like increasingly working, and I don't know why that would be the case. Twitch doesn't like my dev account. Why not? What do you mean? Weasel dev. Oh, seems to be working. So here's the question. If I start getting wacky, if I like share my entire screen, and then on the Firefox side, that actually started going faster. Sorry, on the Firefox side, on the Echo side is what I meant. Of course, I'm not usually testing this in Firefox. It could theoretically actually be working better in Firefox than in Chrome. Maybe I do need to install Chrome on the random garbage VPS I'm using. Well, if Twitch doesn't like it, that's just too bad. Basically, after a issue I had with Malo the other day, I'm trying to look for any sources of lag, but my only conclusion is that the only source of lag is, like, my actual internet. So the issue is, like, you can switch to Discord or something, and Discord will go faster, but that's because Discord is using a man-in-the-middle server, and that's a bit of an unfair comparison because I can't. I do have .cache mounted on a secondary, like a different disk than the rest of my system. Oh, my face is slowing down. That's cool. Well, that'll happen from time to time. You know, sometimes your face slows down. Okay, I'm attempting to connect Echo with Chromium now. Oh, it's even more busted. Everything is even more busted. Oh, right, of course, because Chromium won't be able to capture an Echo. Okay, well, my actual task as listed today is just to stare into space. It's just to stare at some code, so this was beyond my stated task anyway. I will go back to just stare at code style. Play is the function I really need. That feels wrong. Why would we have a minimum delay of 40 milliseconds? No, you want the minimum of these. Right, that's the maximum delay. Okay. When do I actually apply the ideal timestamp? I think it's, yeah, here. The thing is, the only real source of latency, at least any major latency, is the actual transmission of data. How dare you, Lucy, in chat? How dare you? Although the Vim versus Emacs battle is currently in an armistice because we have a collective enemy in VS Code. So we've banded together to fight against our true enemy. Also, lowercase e capital Max is probably the worst spelling of that imaginable, and if I was an Emacs user, I would probably be offended by it. Luckily, I'm not. Is it conceivable for the data channel to be that slow? I guess, like, the data channel does have some kind of acknowledgement. I am using NeoVim, Lucy. This is NeoVim that, for my own sake, I have set up to follow the name Vim because I'm accustomed to typing it. I was typing Vim for a decade before NeoVim was even imagined. I also apparently don't trust NeoVim's memory management because I limit it to 2 gigs of RAM. I didn't remember that part of that script. MDN RTC data channel. There's no information on latency right here. Maybe an RTC peer connection? No. I mean, this is just the API, so I wouldn't really expect it to talk about latency, but it could say things like, hey, if you don't want latency, then don't put a buffer and don't do this and that. Cat gets. You an Alpine user? Or what's that phone one? Postmarket OS? I said ordered false. I wonder. Is my understanding even more wrong than I think it is? I would be fairly embarrassed if I was supposed to put max retransmit 0 here. Well, I've never heard of cat gets, so... that are attempted in unreliable mode. Is it conceivable that I'm that stupid? Yes. Because the default is reliable. Set to indicate unreliable mode. Cat gets is a C function, supposedly. Sure doesn't sound like one to my memory. I know that gets is a C function. It's like, oh. I don't have the man pages installed. Yeah, it's just man pages. What would cat gets be? A would be allocating. I guess it would make sense to have an allocating version of gets, but that sounds like a BSD thing, not a GNU thing. Not that you said anything about GNU things, but I would assume that it would be meant to work on glibc. What? I don't know how man pages work. Is it glibc doc? Is that what I'm trying to install? Where is the gets man page? I don't have a file installed. Doing a real good job here. Man pages dev. Oh, I'm so sorry. I wanted the useful man pages, not the useless man pages. Get a message from a message catalog. The hell is message catalogs? It's POSIX? Message catalog? Catalog is this like a whole other type of thing in POSIX that I didn't know was there? Oh, a catalog of messages in the sense of like the right locale messages. Like okay, I see. Well, I know nothing about that. My approach to locales is I only speak English and barely that. So I think I made a major goof here, and this is like without max retransmits 0 there. My C is actually getting a little bit rusty. I've been speaking too much C++ and too much TypeScript. But man, I doubt that I had I learned C before I learned English. There are certainly aspects of English grammar. Like I learned to correctly use a semicolon in C before I learned to correctly use a semicolon in English. That much is certainly true. GitHub? Hello? GitHub? You there? Or no? Yes? Nothing? All that for already up to date. Brilliant. Lucy, I have an interest in Rust, but I have not yet managed to manifest that interest into actually learning Rust. I think I have crystallized why I don't dislike Rust. I like Rust. I've crystallized why I am not very interested in learning Rust, I think. The like fundamental thing that Rust gives you over C. There's lots of other, just the kinds of improvements you would make if you made a language 50 years later. But the fundamental thing it gives you over C is correct memory management, is region typing and borrow typing and all of that kind of thing to give you correct memory management. But that is done in the types, and it is not something that fundamentally has anything to do with types. So it is an extra mental burden for you to be considering the memory allocation when you would like to be considering the actual structure of data. And that mental burden I consider to be quite onerous. Conversely, languages with garbage collectors also relieve you of the mental burden of considering memory management, but do so in a way that doesn't just move the burden elsewhere. So, I don't think that I would want to use a garbage collector for all possible purposes. There are lots of things where you want that. You want a predictable latency. You don't want GC pauses. But I feel like people who hate GCs really demonize GC pauses when that's actually a very minor concern. And in the vast majority of programs, it simply doesn't matter. Like, no matter how slow the GC pause is, it's way faster than the ape using the computer. So, so there's there's tons of situations where GC does everything I need. And, like, if Rust had a good garbage collector as an alternative use, so you could, like, write your performant kernels using the borrow checker, but write, most of your code using GC, that would be the way. But that's not what they did. Let's check if I just broke everything. If I didn't just break everything, then I just fixed everything in a way that is, frankly, just embarrassing. Because that bug has been in there since day one. Literally the first line of code I wrote. The first time I started initializing the data connection, that would have been there. So if this fixes anything, then I am molto stupid. Test, test, test. So far, I've demonstrated that it hasn't broken anything. Yeah, okay, it's, huh. Is it self-echo canceling itself? And if so, why? Because I told it to. There's the reason. Okie dokie. I was like, why is echo canceling applying? Because I told it to. Okay, so I haven't like totally broken everything yet. Yet. I'm going to go ahead and re-log in on my botched echo system that I attempted to make and failed. What is this? I have no memory of the music I'm currently listening to. It's Bajo Fondo. Oh, it's from their seminal album, which I have not listened to very much. It's their seminal and titular album. It's got all of the vaguely suggestive, but actually just quite mundane words. Ack. Opening windows in front of windows. You know, I used to be very concerned about my window manager, but nowadays I do so much in the terminal that like I don't care that much about my window manager. I was a KDE 3 person. God, I loved KDE 3. Okay, does this appear to be working? Ooh, interesting. Yeah, okay, so it is going through. I'm only testing this unidirectionally just to test whether I'm like dropping data. And I don't seem to be. Looks great actually. I think I just fixed like such a catastrophic bug. Oy vey, oy vey. I'm genuinely ashamed of this bug. But you know what? The reason I'm doing dev like this is it's radical openness. That means openness about what's right and openness about what's wrong. And sometimes I F up real bad. Sometimes I F up real bad like. I've never tried it, Lucy. Basically, so here's my story. Here's my story of KDE3. So I started using Linux. I guess it was probably the KDE2 era. I never used KDE2, but like pre KDE3. And once you know what? My KDE era was even before my Debian era, so I guess I was probably using Mandrake. And once Mandrake got KDE3, I thought I'd try it, and it was like the customizability was just so lovely. So the thing is, like everything about Linux feels like you can hack it because you can, and KDE3 also feels that way. And so when KDE4, when there was like hype around KDE4 and whatever the version of GNOME that was coming out roughly the same time, GNOME 5, maybe it was also GNOME 4, maybe it was GNOME 3, I don't remember. It was like the first Linux on the desktop zeitgeist that I remember, where people were really excited about like this is it. This is going to be the time when Linux is successful on the desktop. And KDE4 was real bad, and GNOME was like I never liked GNOME, but that version of GNOME 3 or whatever it was real bad. And while KDE has gotten better, it's gotten better in a like it is emulating Windows in a way that is acceptable direction, whereas GNOME, like the direction GNOME has gone, my statement on GNOME is I'm against the death penalty, but I could make an exception for the developers of GNOME. It is that bad. It is so it's like it's inexcusable. It is an inexcusable desktop environment, and seeing how awful KDE4 was, and just like associating it mentally with this zeitgeist of the reason they took all of this away from KDE3 is that they wanted to appeal Open Mandriva Gaming Edition. They wanted to appeal to end users, to quote unquote normal users. That not only like I still carry the bitterness over KDE3 going away, but also like that made me hate the Linux on the desktop zeitgeist as a concept. I don't want Linux on the desktop. I have changed from a Linux zealot to a Linux supremacist. If you don't use Linux, and I do, I am better than you, but that doesn't mean I want to convince you to change, because you switching will not, this is for some you who is, some Windows user or whatever, because them switching will not make Linux better, it will make Linux worse. And it will not make them better either, it will only make Linux worse. So there's my Linux supremacist approach. You like it? It's pretty aggressive. But the thing, I remember very strongly the free desktop stuff and XDG and such, and like that was such a huge improvement over the previous state of things. So I've seen the ups and the downs of the Linux on the desktop zeitgeist. Why am I in the beta branch? I gave up on the distro wars a long time ago, Lucy. I've been using Debian since like 2001, and so basically like I when people attempt to open the distro wars with me, there's always the moment of like, yeah, I've been using Debian since before that existed, so don't care. Here's your binky. But Alpine I know of because like getting away. So really just being a non-GNU Linux is interesting. I don't know if it's like a noble goal or whatever, but it is an interesting major distinction. Um, and Nixos I've heard of. Nixos is a really interesting approach. I would like to like so if I had deeper sort of like if I was a sysadmin and not just sort of managing my own systems, I feel like I would really appreciate Nixos. This is a sufficiently important change that I'm going to immediately make a release for this. I have to make a release on no, I can do it here. That's fine. I have to publish the release on my other system, but I can make a release here. I only have to publish it on the other system because I need to, use my authenticator, log on to place, npm, etc. I mean, so I've actually looked into. So Arch doesn't interest me. Arch just feels like most of the ideas in Arch are the same as the ideas in Debian. Just they did it, 15 years later, and so made fewer mistakes. But like Nixos, that is an actually unique and different take on this concept, and that to me is way more interesting than anything else. Than anything else. Oh, this is still using Browserify. Interesting. I'll have to change that eventually. One line change. Wait. Close the chuckin' even if we don't use it. Okay, I just almost made quite a stupid mistake. So, like Debian, as I've said, I'm not really that like. So, yeah, I don't I am not a so I am a Linux supremacist. I am a Debian nothing. I am a Debian user. I'm actually wearing a Debian T-shirt right now. But like I basically use Debian because that's what I happen to end up with, and it's been it's been good to me for 23 years. It's been good to me for 23 years. So I like, why not? I have no reason to change. But like I remember I first ended up looking at Debian because I had been on Mandrake, and I was trying to figure out like some of the things about Mandrake that were better than Red Hat. What is it that they were doing right? And in every single case, what I found is they just lifted this from Debian. Mandrake was basically the best parts of Red Hat plus the best parts of Debian. And since the best parts of Red Hat were getting less and less important, I eventually was just like, oh, well, I guess I'll just use Debian then. I'm off in another window, actually publishing this release of RTEnnui. Lucy in chat, FTL was just implemented on WebRTC. FTL was basically WebRTC as a streaming service. So, no, in that it's trying to be a competitor to WebRTC, not a like a replacement to WebRTC, but the sort of subtle detail about being a replacement to WebRTC is it is a replacement for the, how did I say this in the README? Is a replacement for the media component of WebRTC. It still uses WebRTC for the actual connection. So in a sense, it's using WebRTC, which thus makes it the same as FTL because it was just WebRTC. Don't tell me about the package lock. Nobody cares about the package lock. Okay, good. Make clean should not delete the Vosk model. That doesn't make any sense. That should be like make dist clean. I'm gonna have to note to self to run some tests on this before publishing the new version of EnnuiCaster that uses that, because that is, although it is literally a one-line change, it is a very, 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 very fundamental change to the behavior of the software. So we'll have to do the proper testing. I've used a Vax, Lucy. So there was a Vax still doing its thing, running OpenVMS rather, at my university when I did university. So I could and even did a couple times access it there. Didn't really have any use for it. I have never physically touched a Vax. I have SSH'd into a Vax. Okay, so that was a catastrophic change. Lucy, it was one of, like so many university systems, it was like one of those systems that, they had some ancient software that ran on OpenVMS and they just hadn't replaced the that software yet. And so, like, the only reason that it was still running is to run some particular software, probably for some course or something. But yeah, I mean, it would be pointless to update it to NetBSD because there's no reason to continue using this ancient system except to run the particular software that only runs on it. So don't install an operating system that won't run it. I assume it won't run it. NetBSD's compatibility with other operating systems, I don't know how good it is. I would assume shockingly delicious. Oh, you can't use both simultaneously. That's weird. Not setting any of these two, either of these properties results in normal. Wow. I really was. All I was doing was. I thought that if you. So here was my misunderstanding. I thought that if you set any of the reliability related things, that it would be unreliable. And that's true, but I thought that ordered was one of the reliability related things. And I guess ordered is just its own. It's just orthogonal. The idea of having an ordered unreliable connection is insane to me. I like don't have any clue what that would mean. Everywhere else, yeah, that it has to be that. It has to be implicit latency in the unreliable data transfer. How would that actually manifest? I guess yeah, it could essentially like swamp the channel with Axe, and that's what's gonna slow everything down. Basically, I'm trying to think like why would this actually increase latency? Well, and I guess also it would actually receive packets late because now instead of being one, actually half an RTT, it's just any number of RTTs. Yeah, and if you have a random packet here and there, that wait, of course, because this latency is based on the difference in the average latency of packets. It's about the reliability of the latency performance. So if you have occasional packets that just aren't going, oh, that was catastrophic, is what that was. That was really bad. I feel molto stupid about that one. Oh, I'm glad I stared at code and thought real hard. I've made one line of change today, but it was extremely successful. Oh, I can't test this on. The reason why this issue has been open so long is I can't really test it on normal-ish systems, so that's not actually useful. I would need AAC support. I mean, I'm feeling very accomplished and not feeling very much like choosing another task to do. You know what? I'm going to continue staring at this code and thinking real hard. So far, it's worked out great. I was about to say, I didn't think this was up to date. By 27 commits. That's extremely out of date, actually. Ah, okay. It's not actually out of date. Just didn't have the master branch up to date. No big deal. Don't know why that suddenly occurred to me. Well, you know what? I call it a dev hour. That was a very successful hour in that I maybe diagnosed something. We'll see. And what more could you want? So, dev hour has not been eliminated. Dev hour will continue. I had a couple weeks when I couldn't do it just because of other concerns, but we're back. We're back. Stream over.